more on Cuba's changing business climate. We are joined by Carlos Alzugaray. He's the former Cuban ambassador to Belgium and is the professor of international relations at Havana University. Welcome to the show. Give us a state of the current business environment in Cuba.
Thank you. I think what is important about Cuba is the way that the environment has changed from the government side. In the past, the government pretended to monopolize all economic activities. Now, since about 20 years ago first, and now more strongly since about 5-6 years ago, the government has decided that the private sector or the non-state sector will be part of the new economic model that is being created. About 500,000 Cubans right now have jumped into that opportunity and are creating their own businesses. These businesses take different forms. And as a matter of fact, what you just showed is something very interesting, because I think one of the areas where Cubans can demonstrate that they can have businesses, successful businesses, are in everything that has to do with creative, artistic activities. Let me give you another example. Recently, Alejandro Perez, a film director, filmed a small video clip of Enrique Iglesias singing Bailando, a hit last year in the Latin Grammys. Well, Alejandro has been hired by the Puerto Rican singer, I forgot the name now, Mark Anthony, and he is now directing the films of the video clips of Mark Anthony. This is very interesting because it goes to demonstrate that over the years the government has created a human capital that is ready to jump at these possibilities of creating new business. This is the beginning
Ambassador,
now.
This human capital that you're talking about, I'm just curious, 2-3 years from now, what will our discussion look like when we talk about the people in Havana, in Cuba? What does the city look like in 2 or 3 years with this sort of newfound enthusiasm?
Well, every time that the activity, that economic activity has increased, what you see in the city first is people repairing their homes. That's one characteristic of Havana. Havana is a beautiful city, but because of the two crises that Cuba underwent in the last 40-50 years, the crisis after the imposition of the U.S. economic sanctions, and then when the Soviet Union imploded, the result was the city was quite run down in the 90s. But now, whenever you see increased economic activities, what people dedicate more of the profits they make is to make their home better, to expand their homes, and even turning their homes into small businesses. I know a case of a person who bought a small house, established a paladar, a very successful restaurant. Now the restaurant is expanding. That block has been changed by the way that paladar has increased its activities. If you go to old Havana, that's the same story.
Ambassador, we see that time and time again when countries open up their markets. One of the first groups that ultimately jump in, it's not the government, it's not big businesses, it's actually, as you say, small individual businesses who are trying to make a living for themselves. I do want to ask you this, though. When you talk about these businesses, what do businesses want government to do to succeed?
Excuse me, I didn't understand well the question. What does the government want?
What do the entrepreneurs in Cuba want the government to do or not to do in order to get to where they want to be? In other words, there's obviously opportunities, but they need a little bit of assistance, if you will.
Yeah, there is obviously some areas that require some treatment by the government, and I expect that to happen soon. First, to extend credit, it exists already. Banks are giving credits to small entrepreneurs who want to start a business. That's something that is happening. The government banks are prioritizing the cooperatives. They also want more wholesalers, either that the government does the wholesale, gets into the wholesale business in a more substantive way so that they can buy all their inputs either if there are equipment, appliances, or inputs for their businesses, or and this is, I think, it's one of the steps that will come at some point in time in the future, is to let the wholesale business go also private, that there would be private entrepreneurs who would dedicate themselves to buying things and selling things for the small entrepreneurs.
Ambassador, I apologize we're out of time, but I do want to thank you for your time, some fascinating thoughts about what the future of Havana, the future of Cuba is going to look like. I hope Home Depot is watching. Ambassador, thank you very much.